Okay, and when I say let's move on, it means I'm stopping the video and starting a second file so that I can send them on WeChat back to China. In case those of you that didn't watch my speaking introduction video, I'm living in Australia at the moment, making these videos, usually 3 or 4 at a time, and sending them back to my school in China. Anyway, let's move on. So we're going to look now at introductions, and basically we're going to look at the common things students do and what you should be doing instead of that. Now, what most students do is change a few words, but leave the sentence structure the exact same as the question. Now, this is a good thing to do. You know, it's good to change some of the words. But if you're copying the grammar structure from the question, it does sound a little bit too mechanical and well practiced. By changing the grammar, it will sound a little bit more original, a little bit less mechanical. Okay, so we want to change both some words and some of the grammar structure. And don't worry, I'm going to show you about this. But first of all, what students do is this. Okay, so if this was the question it was asking, the table below gives information on consumer spending on different items in 5 different countries in 2001. Now, that's the sentence from the question. What students might do is go down here. Below gives, provides. Oh, information, I can change that to data. Oh, consumer, customer. Spending, expenses. Different, various, items, goods, 5 different countries, number of nations. Booyah, I've changed lots of words. Yay. And again, that's a good thing. I think knowing consumer and customer, spending and expenses, this is a good thing to be changing some of those words. But again, you're basically copying the structure there. What we can do is change those words and make a couple of little other changes as well. Okay, so the first one there is to change, well, let me show you my example and then we'll look at it bit by bit. So in this table, we are shown how people of different nations in the year 2001 spend their money on varying products. Oops, just realized a mistake. That should be spent their money on varying products because it's 2001. Very common mistake people make is not using the past when they're writing about a graph in the past. Okay, so when we are changing introductions, we do try and change, I'd say, well, not half the words, half the main words. So normally in that sentence, let's go back at the question, consumer spending items, different, information, information, consumer spending items, different countries. Only about 5 or 6 of those words are the words you need to change. You don't need to say the table. You don't need to give a different word for table there. So restructure the sentence. We restructure the sentence in 3 main ways. The first way is really easy, but it shows that you know some different grammar. So I say use a passive introduction. Now, in case you don't know the word passive, so basically a passive verb is when there is the object becomes the subject. So we have active and passive. So active, I throw. Oh, what's this called, by the way? This is another vocabulary thing. A lot of people don't know what to call the top of a bottle. I'll get another one here. This is my water bottle. So here I have this thing. A lot of people call it a cap. For, say, a beer bottle, we would call that a bottle cap. But for this, I would not call it a cap. But a lot of people don't know this word. It's a very simple, boring, easy, day-to-day word that everybody in Australia, England, America would know. It's a cap. Sorry. Oh, no, that's a cap. Lid. L-I-D. Simple word. So knowing the right vocabulary is more important than big words. Okay, anyway. So my example again. I throw the cap. I throw the lid. That's an active sentence. The lid was thrown is a passive sentence. Okay, so you're making a cake. The flour is put into the bowl. The flour and eggs are mixed with milk. This is passive. So in this situation, in this chart, we are shown. And the opposite would be this chart shows us. Okay, so that's a simple, easy change. The second thing we want to do is change the verb and noun structure, usually using how. Not always. It could be that sometimes we can't use how, but most of the time we can. For example, we are shown how many students studied. Okay, for that one before, we are shown how much. Let's go back again there. We are shown how people spent their money. So how people spent their money there. Okay, so that's the second change. The third change is just to move the date or place. This is a very simple thing, just to make your sentence very different from the question. The first one and the third one are easy things you can do. If you don't feel comfortable with the second part, you don't have to do that. You can just focus on the first one and the second one, and it will still be different enough from the question if you have also changed some of the words. Okay, so let's practice some of these together. Okay, so the first one, let's talk about it before I show you my example. And if you want, you can pause the video and try writing your own at home. In fact, no, don't try, do that. Everyone stop the video, study this, and then write your own introduction to this question. Okay, so stop the video, write that down, and then you'll come back in a moment and see, does it match mine? Okay. So hopefully you have paused the video and written your own introduction there. Now, let's look at this question. The graph below shows the consumption of fish and some different kinds of meat in a European country between 1979 and 2004. So first of all, consumption of fish and meat. Okay, so I'm looking here at the word consumption. We have a noun, so I'm thinking I want to change that noun to the verb. What is the noun of consumption? Very good, yes, it is consume. That student over there in Luoyang knew the answer to that one. So it would actually be very funny if somebody watching this video in Luoyang said the word consume and is watching this video, he saw me? No, I'm just guessing. But that would be very funny. I hope one day somebody in Luoyang says that while watching this video. So consume. Okay, so consumption, consume. So how can we put consume? So if we can use consume, we have two ways. Again, active or passive. People consume, or the fish and meat was consumed. Okay, they're the two ways. Now, what do you think? Do we have people in here? Well, we could say some people from European countries consumed. But do you think that's more important than fish and meat? Probably fish and meat is the more important thing. I mean, both would work. You know, you could say the people of this country consumed, or the fish and meat was consumed. But how do we put that in a sentence? With how. So how, well, let's have a look. How much meat? Actually, that's meant to be meat and fish in there as well. So sometimes I'm just making it a little bit shorter to fit on. So in this graph, we are shown. So hopefully you all got that part correctly. In this graph, we are shown. It's a fairly simple way to do that. How much? Because with meat, we wouldn't say many. Sometimes it's how many. If it's about an action. So for example, how people spent their money. So how much meat was consumed? How many cars were sold? How many people traveled by bus? Now, there's the kind of three common things. There is a fourth one we sometimes use, which is how this information changed. And I'm going to say that one to you because that's an important one. When you don't know what to say, that's the safe one. That's the one if you can't find an easy way. We are shown how the sales of books changed from this time to this time. Okay, so four kind of different structures there. Again, I'll just say those again. How much meat was consumed, how many books were sold, how people traveled differently, how this information changed. Okay, so that one's a pretty easy one. I decided to just move the dates and country around. That's a very small change. Now, let's have a look at another one. Now, this pie chart I'm not going to show you the picture. There's basically 4 pie charts for this one. One for France in 1980, one for France in 2000, and 2 for Australia in those dates. Okay, so once again, for you guys working at home, I really want you to pause your video, study this question, write your own introduction, and check it in a moment. Okay, welcome back. So, what did you guys think were the key words we could change from verb to noun or noun to verb? So let's have a look. Electricity production, fuel source. Have a look at the word by fuel source. That's just telling us that that's the categories of maybe the things in the chart. So that's not the main thing it's showing. When you see the word by there, you should know that. Okay. The key thing then is electricity production. So I wonder if our friend in Law Young knows the verb for production. No? How about you over in Zhangzhou? Yes, very good. Produce. So lots of people listening all over China. So production, produce. If some of you said product, product is just the physical thing. It's still a noun. Okay, production is the noun as the abstract noun, the idea of production. Product is a physical thing that is produced. So we have the word produce. Again, we could do both ways. We could say how much electricity Australia and France produced, or we could do the passive, how much electricity was produced. Here's a little thing as well, the by fuel source. Maybe we don't need to include that. It doesn't necessarily have to. We don't have to tell them what all the categories are. If you look at it, it's going to be oil and gas and nuclear and things like that. We don't have to say those. And we certainly do not list them. We do not say by fuel source, which included coal and gas and nuclear and solar power. We don't say those things in the introduction because you're just copying the vocabulary from the question. You're going to be using that vocabulary later a lot in your body paragraphs there. Okay, so let's have a look. In this pie chart, we are shown, actually I should, again, a small mistake, in these pie charts. Of course, that's easier when I'm looking at the graph, but for this, I wasn't looking at the graph. We are shown how much electricity was produced. And again, I just changed the dates around, but I made a small change in France compared to Australia. This is another great phrase, compared to. So instead of saying in 1980 and 2000, you could say in 1980 compared to 2000. So this works when you have 2 years. It even works if you have 3 years. So in 1980 compared to 2000 and 2020 there. So you could use this as a good little bit of vocabulary that's different from using and. Now, remember, this doesn't work if you have a line graph where it has this year and this year and this year and this year and this year. It doesn't work for that. It only works when you have this date and this date, maximum 3. You're not going to do it with more than 3 years. So say the graph has 1997, 1998, 1999, then you could use that, but not more than 3 years. Okay, let's do one more together. And again, pause your video, write your answer. Welcome back. Okay, so the diagrams below show the stages and equipment in the cement making process. So process is a noun. Now at this point, we might change that to a verb. Making is basically probably more of the noun we're looking at. Make there. So we could use the verb make. And the second part, to produce concrete for building purposes. So we could then shift produce back to production. That's one way to think about it. So let's have a look at my answer. In these diagrams, we are shown how cement is produced. So instead of using making, I've used the verb make, but I thought, no, let's change it from make to produce. How cement is produced, as well as the method for making concrete using that cement. So I've actually swapped them around. I've taken make here, produce here, and swapped them around there. So that's all I'm always doing. I'm taking it from here and putting it over here. Okay, so just before we finish, just remember, change some of the vocabulary, change the start from active to passive grammar, change the verb to a noun or the noun to a verb, often using how. And please go back and look through those 3 examples if you're not sure, and maybe just move the dates or countries around. Okay, so that's pretty much all for today's video. Time is getting up very close to 30 minutes, so let me move on. For our next lesson, I'm going to talk about these 2 graphs here. So please pause your video now, study these, and have a think about what you would write about. I don't have the full question here. This is the number of university students in a UK university. Okay, and this is, you can see there, goods transported in the UK. Okay, and that's, if you can't read that, that's by, I think, millions of tons. I'm not sure if that's billions. Let's say that's millions of tons. Okay, and that's the number of students. Okay, so in our next video, we'll come back and look at those. I thought it would be good for you to think about them. Thank you very much. Again, please send your questions to me. And in our last video on writing, I'll look at answering a lot of the questions that you guys sent me. Thank you very much. My name is Gavin Scott, and it's been a pleasure talking to you today. See you soon. Bye.